We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with Liberty Nation's longtime host of this here show and senior political analyst, Mr. Tim Donner. Earlier in the show, we were talking the two-party system and how the independents appear to be breaking for Donald Trump. For reasons, if you want to know, go back and watch the first half. Now, Tim, thanks for coming back. What I'd really like to delve into in this segment is talk about what's happening on the political left in terms of how the DNC is getting its ducks in the row for a return to the Biden presidency. But something that has been swirling around let's call it the rumor toilet bowl, swirling clockwise, I believe, in our hemisphere, about who could be drafted in to replace Mr. Joe Biden, should he not have the energy, the stamina, or even the polling, which he appears not to have the polling, nor the energy, nor the stamina, now that I come to think of it, for 2024. And that is Miss Michelle Obama, I'm hearing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've heard this ever since 2016. Yeah. Honestly, we didn't hear it in 2020 because she didn't want to run, nor did she want to run in 2016. Yeah, sure, that sounds really good. It sounds, if you're on the left, like, oh yeah, she definitely would. It would attract a lot of Democratic support, but I think she's not well-liked at all, a lot less well-liked in Republican circles, in non-Democratic circles than her husband. So the fantasy of Michelle Obama, I think, look, if you take the chaos that it would imply for the Democratic Party to deep six their own sitting president in favor of somebody else, I think they're locked in. I think what's happening, Mark, is that the bill is coming due for 2020. The Democrats made a deal with the devil to bring forward a guy in Joe Biden who was cognitively challenged, to say the least. They managed to get through it because of the pandemic, which allowed him to hide in his basement and allowed him to point fingers with no accountability of his own, point fingers at Trump as basically a killer because of the pandemic. He can't do any of that.
Let's just very, very, very quickly. I just want to point out that at the time he said, somebody with, I think it was 200,000 deaths under his belt from COVID doesn't deserve to be president. I believe that's 1 million now, so that's 800,000 under Joe Biden's belt. So he really can't make that claim with a straight face anymore.
Well, I'm sure that the New York Times and their ilk will be quick to point that out, Mark. Not. No, that the bill's coming due because they had to put on someone who seemed moderate. And if you recall the debates in 2020 among the Democrats, it was a battle to see who could sound the most radical, which scared the bejesus out of the American people. So they had to go with Biden. And then because of the George Floyd situation and his general cowardice, Joe Biden was essentially forced to pick Kamala Harris. So here we are 4 years later. Kamala Harris is an even worse disaster than we could have envisioned. Nobody wants her to be president. And they're stuck with Biden because he's the president, he's the head of the party, and he can damn well decide whether he wants to run again or not. They cannot force him out. And if they do want to get him out, they'd have to go through Jill Biden, who, by all accounts, is probably his closest advisor and the one who ultimately gave him permission concept to run in 2020 and again in 2024.
Funnily enough, there was a Gallup poll recently about I think it was the person that people most looked up to in the world, Prince William. This was among Americans. Prince William of England came number one. And I think Jill Biden was number 2 or 3, which is kind of weird, especially considering her husband
was why not?
number 7 below Donald Trump.
Well, forget Michelle Obama, then. They should be drafting Jill Biden.
Well, Michelle Obama has
excuse me.
A lot of boxes ticked, right?
Excuse me, I misspoke. Dr. Jill Biden.
Dr. Jill
See,
Biden.
they could get her to run for president, couldn't they? But they're boxed in.
Yeah.
Mark, they're in big trouble because they can't bring up, they basically ceded the whole morality issue because of the problems of Hunter Biden and the Biden family syndicate. They can't really point a finger of moral outrage at Trump because they'd open that enormous can of worms in their own backyard. Democrats, they are in open panic, as I wrote in a column on LibertyNation.com recently about a piece from the founder of MSNBC, a fellow named Tom Rogers, who in the headline of his piece in Newsweek said, "It's time to freak out. Donald Trump is very likely our next president." Well, that is finally expressing openly what Democrats have been hinting at or saying in a low voice, sotto voce, until now. But now it's open panic, because if you look at between now and 15 months from now in the election, that amount of time is really pretty ominous period of time for Joe Biden to have to survive, because his cognitive condition is only going to get worse. At absolute best, it could remain the same. Still, how's he going to debate Trump like that? And then if he doesn't debate Trump, what does it say about his own capacity to continue to serve as president?
Then it actually makes me think, if the DNC did want to ditch Joe Biden, that they could always encourage Joe Biden to take the debate stage against RFK Jr. And that would certainly throw the cat among the pigeons. But I think they would rather have Donald Trump in office than RFK Jr., wouldn't they?
Well, it's probably a pretty close call.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is, RFK is what I would call the skunk at the Democrats' garden party, because, he says all the wrong things for a Democrat that are very threatening, and he's been supported a lot by conservatives. But I think, look, in terms of this whole business of this election coming up, the Democrats are not just freaking out about Joe Biden. They're also freaking out about the increasing likelihood of the no labels party. It's an actual party putting forward a candidate, a moderate, most likely Joe Manchin. If that happens, the Democrats are in really, really deep trouble, because he's likely to pull a lot more votes from Democrats than from Republicans. As a matter of fact, the no labels movement has been accused by Democrats of being a secret vessel for the Republican Party.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. But I mean, everybody's still ignoring the significant danger that Cornel West, heading up at the Green Party, could do to the Democrat chances.
Well, it's true. It depends on how practical the Democrats are, the progressive far left Democrats. If they're practical, they'll vote for Biden to keep Trump out. If they're voting on principle, a lot of them will go with Brother Cornel West, because he is clearly a dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore, radical progressive.
He's the Bernie Sanders they were denied for 2 elections. Tim Donner, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at LibertyNation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are LibertyNation.com.